2 years ago, I started on this endeavor of creating the most extravagant original design I have ever created. And I am indeed very, very, very proud of it. It ended up being on an international stage, and it is one of the craziest things I ever decided to do. I have said that twice now. Lots of beading, embellishment, and insane little details. The lining is entirely embellished as well. So much happened, so much was learned, and honestly, it makes me feel like an actual king to wear this costume, though it is only a senator, with every single thing referencing something in the Star Wars universe and every single thing having meaning with extreme accuracy in detail in Star Wars costuming. This is honestly a very intricate garment. But I never said I was done with the garment. I never said this is the definitive end. And so here we are today. So you're probably wondering, why do something that was that intense again after spending 2 years on it? Now, first off, I'm not abandoning the whole costume. Absolutely not. Like the base layers, the pants, the tunic, the crown, all the crazy stuff that I did underneath, that's all going to stay. The tabards, the fishtail, the belt, all that stays. It's just the new coat. The reason is that there were some mistakes that I made because I didn't know how to use silk. I didn't interface it. I didn't use the right tension. I didn't do anything. It puckered, all that stuff. So it was, the coat itself is very, very fine for wearing to a convention. I love wearing it to conventions. I've worn it to 2 so far because it only got finished in August and I've really not had a chance to do it more often. But for competition, that's where it doesn't really work out. Now, it made it into the global championships, the crown championships of cosplay, but it didn't really get past any of that because there were so many tiny mistakes on it, on the sewing of the coat, that it didn't look very good. So I've decided to remake it using the sheer amount of scrap cotton that I have left over, or cotton that I bought that I've never used. So I'm trying to stash bust the cotton. So I'm going to interface it with a bunch of random colors of cotton. I have this gorgeous blue and brown silk that I bought. And I've done a sample of embroidery. So this is just a sample of like base embroidery. It's not perfect, obviously, but it's just chain stitches, satin stitches, more satin stitches, right? And this is just basically to show me sort of the base. None of this is all going to be outlined and beaded and all that stuff. This is literally just the base piece. So I've done that. This is basically just to show me where I want things, how I want them to lay, because I want one of these on each panel. There's going to be 6 panels. It's a princess seam coat, so each panel will have one of these. The back 2 panels, I always like making just a little extra, so I'll have a little swirl and like a little fancy bead piece. And one of my favorite things about the side panels was always having this little lightning stuff at the bottom. That aside, I am very excited to get back into this costume because it's literally one of my favorite costumes ever. And now I actually get to make it in the way that I want to make it. Basically, when I was using the silk, I didn't interface it at all, meaning that the embroidery on it just wasn't looking good. And I didn't know that you need to either use stabilizer or interfacing. So I just abandoned the embroidery entirely, cut out a new panel, and said that was it. So now we're doing all of the stuff that I never got to do originally, now that I know what I'm doing, and I've done multiple embroidery projects afterwards. I'm also currently in the midst of that Paul Atreides coat, but that's a whole different video. So embroidery sample, I'm gonna go cut out some panels, maybe even sew them together, I don't know. So listen, I just finished cutting out all the panels, and I need to ask, who let me design costumes? Because this is the second time I've cut out a robe that has sleeves that drape approximately 10 inches on the floor and a train that is 30 inches behind the thing. You're like, that just sounds like Paul Atreides. Yes. Paul Atreides and Anakin are basically the same pattern robe, which is just extremely long and draped. One entirely hand embroidered over, the other will have like the fancy bottom hand embroidery and a little more sleek because Anakin Skywalker, and one is in cotton, one is in silk. Still, whoever let me design costumes needs to stop letting me design costumes because I keep making gigantically embroidered long robes that are a hallway nuisance to wear. My last 3 original designs. For every single one of my original designs. You can tell that I have a type. I like putting war criminals into long, fancy robes, basically. So, it is February. Those first videos were from December, and now 2 months later, we are back into doing this. I'm currently flatlining everything, which just means basting the cotton panel to the silk panel so that the silk hopefully doesn't pucker, because this is going to be a nightmare to sew, which is fine. But I'm very excited to finally do some embellishing. So I spent the last 2 months basically almost only exclusively hand tying wigs. So I'm so excited to get back into embellishing and like all the fun stuff, especially in something that isn't either a pair of pants or a pair of boots, because if you know anything, you know that pants are hard to make and boots suck to sew. But yeah, so we are back on Anakin, and I'm very excited. My goal is to get him to C2E2 this year, just to like bring this cosplay again, because I have some people who want to see it, and I want to upgrade it, and I want to be super dramatic on a Friday or on a Sunday, but I'm very excited. The panels were sewn up first just by machine, so when I do embroidery pieces like this, I usually sew up the back panels, I sew up the side panels because there's 6 panels, and I make it just like one solid back piece, one solid side piece, one solid front piece, right? I was being very careful with the needles here. I was using a very thin needle. I was using very small tension just to make sure that the silk didn't pucker, because I was very, very, very worried about that. So last night after everything, I sewed up the back panels, I pressed everything out. I didn't really film the pressing because the same thing that my ring light, it has one extension cord, so the lighting was bad. But it was just me ironing out silk, so that was the thing. I started embellishing things. I started a smock panel. Didn't turn out very well, so I have a little smocking panel. I might cut this in half and use it later, but now that I have sufficiently scarred the silk, we are going to design the first embroidery. Now I'm probably going to pad out some parts of this thing. The middle is going to be beads, the outside's going to be actual embroidery. I'm going to see if I do chain stitches or not, and then a lot of couching. I want to try to use a whole bunch of different techniques, just because competitive cosplay wants techniques, but this whole costume is kind of an embroidery costume, so I'm allowing myself to actually just do the basic, simple thing and task of embroidery. So we'll see what I design. We'll see if I pad it out. I'm gonna try some stuff. I'm lucky that this is exactly where the embroidery stitches are gonna go, because I sufficiently have scarred the silk, and I am sad. And then also, excuse my voice, I was just at a convention, but I decided to start with the sleeve. So the sleeve changed a lot, but I started with sort of some beads in the middle, and then I moved into the embroidery on the sides, and we watch as that unfolds.
embroidery is mostly done in chain stitches and a mixture of satin stitches just to give it, texture. And I used a bunch of different metallics, I used a bunch of different colors, and I definitely ran out of thread multiple times. But yeah, so this was just literally like 4 days of chain stitching and like 4 days of satin stitching.
Filled in some brown chain stitching. I've also done these little orbs of red blue. These are done in red floss, so these are done actually in this blue machine floss or thread, and then this red one, because I like to use machine embroidery floss or thread. Machine embroidery thread for hand embroidery because it's kind of cool. There's a whole bunch of like really cool weird effects you can do. Okay, so I've started filling in chain stitches here. I'm going to fill in gold stitches here and then cover this. I'm going to use these. These are on clearance, so I was like, okay, I'm going to buy them. I'm going to use these and metallic threads, I don't know where the metallic threads are, to outline all of this because I really like outlining, and then outline in here as well, just because I think it's really cool. So yeah, that's what's happening right now. It's also going to outline this, but this might actually be outlined in just metallic thread or couching. So that's pretty much what brings us to the end of the first piece. That's going to be a while, though. And then we'll do couching that goes up all the way into the sleeve because I'm dramatic.
And then I couched all of the sleeves, right? So then I created sort of a thing that is inspired by Padme's kimono gown. I just did a bunch of like couching in different swirly patterns and using different weights or different sizes of gold metallic cord.
So I've been couching these and this, and I've learned that if I want to couch things, I can't use a hoop, because even my big 12-inch hoop, every time I get close to this thing, just pops open every time I do anything. So I guess we're doing the free-for-all couching. It's not turning out bad, so I'm using different types of thread, right? This is gold thread, this is gold worked cord, this is just more metallic gold thread, to give it sort of a weird texture. Like I said, texture is everything on this project.
And then of course I had to add some beads on the outside. This actually made such a difference in the way that it looked. It looked so cool.
I'm using a brown contrast silk taffeta, and then I have this gold trim that I'm trimming around it because I love contrasting colors with trim. If you haven't noticed on other costumes, I do this a lot, but this is kind of what I'm doing right now. And then we'll do some design in here with beads and everything, and then I don't know if I'm going to connect them with couching yet. I've already done that with a different project, but you know, I'm a creature of habit.
Then each of these pieces were done in silk taffeta with some piece of trim, and then also chain stitches and beads in the middle. I think this whole project is just beads in the middle and chain stitches. I
finished all of this. It's kind of
Uggy, but I'm going to couch down cord and put some stuff inside of it, like beads, make it look all pretty, and then there's going to be couching around it, going all the way up because it's big. It is slightly odd looking, but yeah. So I've done the braining, as it's called, and perhaps more will come into here. We don't know yet. I'm going to figure it out once I have everything put together. I've got 3 more to go. I added some beads, lots of beads. It probably needs a little more, but we'll wait until I finish the rest of the pieces. So I went through and I actually just added a couple more beads and a couple of stuff, and it's probably not done yet right here, but now I think I'm a little happier with it. I don't know. We'll see what the rest of them come through. I unpicked a whole bunch of stuff. I didn't film it, but I still have like 3 more of these to do, so you'll get some form of video of actual beading. But yeah, perhaps I'll put some more here. So it's been like a week since I last worked on Anakin. I'm sorry. But I have Crown Championships are a thing now, so for the past week I've been making lace. And then I also was at a convention last week in which I tried to vlog, then I forgot that I was vlogging it, and so I didn't actually vlog it. I'm sorry. I tried, but we're going to talk quickly about handmade lace, and then I'm going to go back to beading. I did about 4 of these, so I just filmed a couple of them. The back ones were red, the front ones were blue. Again, the red-blue dichotomy, right? And then each piece is couched and outlined after the embroidery is applied, right? Just to like give it dimension, because the difference that it made just to outline it is insane. I've officially finished all of the pieces here, right? All of these. Now, welcome to the next week of hell. Because I've got about a week to finish the rest of this. I've got 1 piece here that I'm going to do in full 6 strand of this really quickly, and then I've got a sleeve to finish up, and then the rest of it is all just constructing the piece and then finishing it with some smaller, like, trimming pieces. It's really just these pieces and the sleeve that were big. And then we just add more beads. I finished the second sleeve. It's slightly different, but it's also the same, right? So I just added more beads, and this is what I filmed because it's the exact same as the first sleeve. It is about 8 p.m. I've got 5 days left before this should be almost done. I can do little tweaks afterwards, but for C2E2, I want like 90% of it done. I've done all the embroidering. I did 2 sleeves. I did 4 of those bottom pieces. There's, things throughout. I didn't film the second sleeve because it's the exact same as the first sleeve. But we are constructing things. I am doing shoulder seams, side seams, getting the sleeves lined. I have the lining cut out from like the charmeuse fabric, right? And then once everything is together, the sleeves get lined separately and then they get inserted lining and regular piece. Just because for me, that's easier. And then I get to couch the entire bottom because that gold thread on the blue, beautiful, beautiful. Cannot fathom the costume without more of that. So that's where we're at. And then I had to shove the very, very large piece under the machine, and this was exactly when I realized, oh no, I have to do this by hand, because I physically just could not, by the end of it, shove it under the machine anymore. And then I couched a whole bunch of stuff, because this is when con crunch was a thing. So I spent 6 hours just couching all along the outside of the embroideries, and I think this is exactly what made the difference. This looks absolutely gorgeous. 3 days remain. Good morning. So I spent, I think, the entirety of yesterday. I was coaching like an extra workshop, so I had about half a day. Today I've got the entire day. So yesterday I couched all of the fancy lines on the edges and on the coat, which took, I think in total, I was up till 6 hours. So today is structural things like pad stitching on the front facings, the pads, the shoulder pads. I'm adding some beads, and then maybe we can even get to the lining. My goal is to hopefully start the hand felling of the lining, because the reason I'm doing it by hand, I know that I should be doing it by machine because I don't have time to do it by hand, but I physically can't wrangle this costume under the machine except for like things like a collar. I could get the neckline, but I cannot get the entirety of this thing. It will just droop and fall. So I'm doing a little bit of beginning beading just on the trims of the bottom pieces, just because I am trash and I don't like the way the trims are very stark. So we're going to try that, and then I'm going to do shoulder pads. And then just to, hide the fold of the trim, I added some beads at the top. I found these really cool, like, iridescent blue beads, and I was like, that was it. That was the thing. And then with that, I also decided to make shoulder pads, so we get to see sort of the way that the shoulder pads are made. Pad stitches and batting, right?
I feel the need to come here and just show you how cool this thing is. So these aren't perfect, they're just meant to go in, but do you see that? That's done with just stitches. It's so cool, right? Like, these shoulder pads just hold their own with stitches only.
When I do linings, I usually do them by hand, and I usually just use felling stitches because it is a really neat way to finish it. And I found out that you can understitch these linings, right? So you do really, really tiny running stitches on the outside with the same color thread, and then it understitches the garment, and so the lining stops peeking out. It's so cool. And then I quilted some of the collar pieces, and I'm going to be doing that again for a new fishtail piece, because the quilting is definitely part of Star Wars, and it was really, really cool.
Another day has passed. It is now Monday, and by Wednesday, I need to be pretty much packed for C2E2, because I don't want to be stressed on Thursday. So, the lining went in yesterday. That took a lot less time than I thought it would. It was probably like 2 hours or 3 hours of lining, surprisingly. And the collar's quilted and put in and all that fun stuff. Like, collar's on, all it needs is seam finishings. I'm going to probably stop. I lost my curtain weights, so I'm going to stop by Joann's and grab a couple of like curtain weights just to finish it off. I'm doing the back panel embroidery because there is a part of the back where I took it in at some point, but then the lats wouldn't, like, my lats are too big for the other part to be taken in. So I couldn't do it smoothly, so I have to cover up the fact that there is a really weird, awkward seam. Lining needs pressing. There's a lot of finishing work. I'm going to put loops on the train just so I can pick it up when I'm like walking, because I know it's going to be frustrating for people around me. I like hallway nuisances, not this much. What else do I have to do? It's really just seam finishings, probably a little bit of like hand understitching on the lining just to keep it in place at the top. I feel like it feels like something's missing. I know it's not, because I did all the work. It's done. but I still have 2 days left. This is wild. This is wild. So, that's exciting. It's very exciting, actually. So, yeah, I'm gonna get started on what I need to do today and film some stuff. I'm rambling.
The back panel is basically just made with more embroidery. I used this stitch called a bullion stitch, and I think that is one of the coolest ideas I've ever had because it turned out so cool. And so yeah, we made this little back piece to hide the weirdness of when I altered a piece at the top, it just looked weird, so the back panel is going to hide that.
So I haven't documented much, but like I'm pretty much at the end of just doing finishing work. The back embroidery piece is attached. There's trim on it now to like hide the fact that it's actually a panel. Collar seam is done. I have to finish the inside sleeve seams. I'm currently understitching by hand, so I'm currently doing a tiny bit of like understitching on the lining to make it like flat because it's like kind of billowy. And then I have to go somewhere in my space. There are 2 curtain weights that I want to put into the bottom before I put in like a little dust ruffle ribbon to protect the bottom from wear, because that thing's gonna get dirty. And I have like a good 1-inch ribbon I'm gonna put down there. And then as a treat, I decided on a whim during training to try and create a new hilt for the lightsaber, because the old one keeps falling off, and it's like what type of Hasbro lightsaber? It's kind of bad looking. I bought PVC pipe, I have EVA foam, I bought chrome paint, like silver paint, and I'm gonna try and recreate a lightsaber hilt that's really light so I can put it and attach it with Velcro on the belt so that it stops falling off, and so it looks a lot nicer and less like the Hasbro saber because it's kind of ugly. And then the last thing I do is I got to sew on 2 magnets on each shoulder, so I have to do the thing where you sew the magnet and then you put it underneath fabric, and then I have to do Velcro at the very edge here. And I'm done. And then I'm fully finished. It's Monday. I have 2 days. I also bought a giant rolling bin, so my car, I'm going to see if I can shove all of my stuff in my car. So, it is Tuesday. The whole robe is done, right? So, I finished the entire robe. But I still have, like, what? 2-3 days? 3 days before I have to really be done? So, I'm going to make a new lightsaber hilt. And I'm going to make it out of PVC pipe and EVA foam. So that's gonna be our goal today, because the other hilt was like a Hasbro hilt and it looked really bad, and so I think it's time I finally upgrade the hilt to make it look really nice.
Yeah, here's the finished piece. It is pretty okay. I need to put something, maybe horsehair braid or something in the train lining, just so that I can, like, I don't know, keep it open, because it likes to close up on itself, because right now it's literally just the trim and the pieces, and it's just weird. So yeah, I have to finish that, but that is a simple fix, which is just unpicking parts of the bottom and getting some stuff in there, or even like making a facing, right? And this is, yeah, I'm probably going to remake the little fishtail on the back just so that it is the same color as the silk, because I have so much leftover silk, and do more quilting, because that's cool. But yeah, this is the finished piece. I love how it opens and shows all of the glorious detail on the inside finally, because the other one just shoves it and closes it, which is so sad.